What's up, camera noobs? If you're watching this and you're probably wondering what the f-stop or aperture as it's referred to is the control of the diaphragm inside your camera lens as it opens and closes to let more or less light in. Lower apertures are better for low light work and portrait work. Higher apertures usually work better for landscapes and bright sunny days or when you want more of your frame in focus. As you begin to stop down your lens, you can see it closes the diaphragm down, letting less light to your sensor, which in turn is going to give you more depth of field and a more sharper image across the frame. As you open it and let more light in, then you're going to get a shallower depth of field, meaning less of your frame is going to be in focus from your focus point. To illustrate exactly what I mean, as we stop our lens down, you can see our focus point start to widen and more of the image will start to come in focus. The higher the f-stop, the more of your frame is going to be in focus. What you have to remember is the higher your aperture, the less light is going to be getting to your sensor, so you're going to have to make your proper adjustments to keep your exposure. The lower your aperture, the more light, the more overexposed it can be if you don't have the correct settings. To illustrate exactly what I mean by that, as you increase your f-stop, you're also going to have to increase your ISO sensitivity, which is the sensitivity of your sensor to light, and decrease the shutter speed. So you need to make your sensor more sensitive to light with a slower shutter speed and a higher f-stop, because less light is getting into the sensor. You need to make your sensor more sensitive to light. Now, as you decrease your aperture, you're also going to have to decrease your ISO setting and make your sensor less sensitive to light so you don't overexpose. And you will also have to increase your shutter speed to have your sensor exposed to the light for less time, so that way you do not overexpose your images. But the lower f-stop does offer better bokeh and more background blur. Now here's an example of using a low aperture, f1.2. This is good for low light stuff. This was in a dimly lit dining room. My aperture was at f1.2. That's why we have so much background blur, and the depth of field is so razor thin. Literally just the CBR racing on the side is the sharpest in focus out of the whole image, and then just immediately falls off to background blur. With the low f-stop like that, you can keep a low ISO and low light, and you can keep a decent shutter speed that will allow you to handhold shoot without using a flash. That's one of the benefits of having a real low aperture, but you just have a low, very narrow depth of field. In contrast to that, showing a high aperture, f16, this was shot in the same dimly lit room, but we have a very high aperture. That's why a lot more of the background is in focus, and things that are further back are visible and that you can see. But with this high aperture, we have to also increase our ISO sensitivity up to 3200, and then we have to lower our exposure time down to a half second. Now, in a low light situation like this, you really don't want to shoot high f-stops, because you would not get hand holdable images. It would be blurry all over the place and it wouldn't work. This is shot from a tripod. That's the only reason that works, but we're just showing the difference between high f-stop and low. Very quickly, I'm going to go over the different kinds of lenses you're going to run into. Primes are fixed focal length lenses, and they will always list the lowest aperture that they can go to. So this particular lens is fixed 100 millimeters, meaning you can't zoom in or out, and its lowest aperture is f2.8, which means it lets in a pretty good amount of light. The lower the number, the more light it lets in. Those are referred to as fast lenses, better for low light, and offer more bokeh and background blur. This is called a variable aperture zoom, meaning as you zoom in the lens, it's going to change the aperture automatically for you. 70 millimeters is the widest angle that this lens can shoot, and as you can see, the lowest aperture it will shoot at 70 millimeters is 4.5. As you zoom in through the focal range up to 300 millimeters, it's going to stop down your aperture to 5.6 and let less light in. So these are referred to as slow lenses. So when it slows it down at your max zoom range, you're going to have to increase your ISO settings. You're going to have to slow down your shutter speed. That's why they call them slow lenses. The other zoom you're going to run into a lot is called a fixed aperture zoom, and that means as you zoom through the range of the lens, 24 to 105 millimeters, it will keep a constant f4 aperture through the entire zoom range. Now this comes in really nice for like weddings and stuff like that. As you zoom in and out, you don't have to worry about adjusting your settings so much, because you're going to have a consistent aperture through your entire zoom range, and to me that's the most desirable zoom lens to have. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you understand what the f-stop is going on now. Please like and subscribe, comment below. Check out my channel because we're going to be doing more tutorials on camera ISO settings and shutter speed so you guys can get a full understanding of how that works. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.